Yeah. All right, good day. My name is Dr. Verleen Mcsween. I'm from the University of the Virgin Islands. And so I wanted to share with you today my work that's centered around doing a thematic analysis of self-identified institutional values among high research capacity, historically Black colleges and universities. So historically Black colleges and universities are institutions of higher education that were established in the US prior to 1964. And they have the principal mission of serving the educational needs of the African American community. And in addition to that, they basically produce a large number of the STEM degrees and STEM professionals of color that we have here in the United States. There are only 101 HBCUs in the US, so a small number. But although they represent a small number of institutions across the country, as I mentioned, they have a significant, or they make a significant contribution to the STEM workforce overall. And so we want to be able to build research capacity at these institutions. And research capacity building is the process of improving the ability of individuals and institutions to develop, implement, and sustain high-quality research. So currently, approximately only 10% of HBCUs are classified as R2s, or high research activity institutions. So to meet that particular criteria, they have to have at least $5 million in research and development expenditures and award at least 20 research doctoral degrees. But unfortunately, there are no HBCUs that are part of the R1 category, so a very high research activity, where you have to meet the threshold of $50 million and have awarded at least 70 research doctoral degrees in any particular data year. So these are the 11 institutions of the HBCUs that have reached the R2 category. So we have Prairie View A&M University, Southern University and A&M College, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, Tennessee State University, North Carolina A&T University, Morgan State University, Florida A&M University, Clark Atlanta University, Jackson State University, Howard University, and Texas Southern University. So despite this occurrence, there are other minority-serving institutions who also have aspirational goals to expand their capacity to fund research and to do quality research as well. In addition to developing the critical infrastructure that they need to be able to sustain their particular research efforts. And engagement of a diverse set of institutional types is really important for being able to expand the national research capacity of the nation in terms of STEM, and also make us more competitive on the global stage as well. However, these institutions oftentimes face barriers to being able to expand their research capacity. So according to the National Science and Technology Council, their report that they put out in 2024, some of those barriers include difficulty identifying funding across a diffuse and complex federal funding terrain, insufficient technical assistance, limited opportunities to build institutional capacity, limited clarity on how institutions build capacity, partnerships that aren't mutually beneficial, bias in the review process, and also limited post-award information that these institutions can use to inform their funding opportunity selections. So I wanted to investigate what were some of the particular elements that helped these select institutions, this cohort of R2s, to be able to get to where they are in terms of having high research capacity, but also what elements could help push them further to be able to reach their aspirational goals of becoming R1 institutions. So this particular diagram sort of highlights my thinking in terms of the idea that strategic planning is really important for being able to build overall research capacity at an institution. There are other areas that are also important, of course, but I wanted to focus on strategic planning. And so strategic planning can be influenced by the strengths, the weaknesses, the threats, opportunities that are presented at a particular institution and that are unique to them, along with things like leadership and also other elements. But I wanted to focus on the values of these institutions And so having a better understanding of the core values of these R2 institutions may provide greater insight into some of the factors that contribute to their effectiveness in building institutional research capacity. So they potentially may have shared values, which are leveraged to promote research capacity building. And these values can then be emulated by other minority serving institutions who also have challenges expanding their research capacity. And overall, these institutions could potentially serve as a model for these MSIs to begin to strategically plan to enhance their research capacity and their infrastructure, which could then promote greater equity in their access to research and also funding opportunities. So I asked the question, what are the emergent values that characterize high research activity HBCUs? And how can these institutional values impact research capacity building at minority serving institutions? So in terms of my data collection and analysis, what I did was that I utilized the Carnegie classification of institutions of higher education. I utilized their website to identify the R2 HBCUs. Then after I identified them, I did a web search to find the most recent strategic plan for each of those institutions. And then I reviewed their strategic plans, looking for different elements, but in this particular presentation, the values. And so once I collated the values from the different institutions, I then did a thematic analysis on the values of the institutions to generate themes. And so these themes represented the core values that were shared among those R2 institutions. So in terms of some of my sort of general results, I found that the different institutions had a variable number of established values, the maximum number being 8, the minimum being 5. And then some institutions simply just listed their values, whereas others provided short descriptions of how their institution exemplified that particular value. Only 2 of the institutions in their value section made reference to their identity as an HBCU, and 5 of the 11 institutions referred to research in their description of their identified values. Some institutions also made direct reference to their present R2 classification, and then a subset of those institutions also made reference in their strategic plans to their aspirational goal of wanting to transition from R2 to the R1 designation. I was able to identify 7 salient themes. And so the themes are listed here along with their frequencies. So the most frequent theme was community, and the least frequent theme was innovation. So we had themes of innovation, social responsibility, diversity and inclusion, respect and integrity, accountability, excellence, and also community. So I'll just share a little bit about how each of these particular values could potentially impact the research capacity building for those institutions. So for example, the idea of community. Community provides an inclusive and supportive environment for scientists of color and scientists from diverse backgrounds to be part of a thriving scientific community, and it promotes a sense of belonging among individuals that have been historically underrepresented or marginalized in STEM disciplines. Community also helps to promote networking, opportunities for mentorship among scholars in the same fields or also in interdisciplinary fields. And this type of collaborative research or approach can allow for sharing of resources among minority serving institutions that may lack research capacity in specific research areas. And this idea of community can expand beyond minority serving institutions to be inclusive of non-minority serving institutions, areas such as industry and government that can collaborate to basically address different critical research questions that might be important to communities of color. So for example, health disparities or environmental justice. In terms of excellence, demonstrated excellence in STEM research can basically lead to an increase in the quality and the impact of the contributions that can be made in particular STEM fields. Having this high standard of excellence in terms of the performance for stakeholders that are part of that research experience. So individuals like faculty, students, different research centers can then increase the number of successful grant proposals or peer-reviewed articles and other research outputs that come out of that particular institution. And then, of course, being able to have these research products can then increase the revenue to the institution in terms of additional research funding that would come in. And such high caliber research can help to gain that national recognition for those particular research programs or institutions on a national scale, allowing them to contribute to the national discussion on a particular research area. And it can also support the training of graduate students, both master's at the doctoral level and also undergraduate students, and increase the number of awarded doctoral degrees that can help push them into that R1 classification, and also generate new degree programs in emerging fields of research. In terms of accountability for research outcomes and how we utilize resources is a really critical and important part of the research process. And that can help to expand the potential research capacity of an institution, along with being able to demonstrate ideals such as stewardship, fiscal responsibility, and transparency, which is critical to maintaining federal and private funding. Also, being able to continually assess the progress of your particular research initiative helps to maintain the engagement and the support of stakeholders, and being able to also consistently report the outcomes for a particular research that you're working on, along with the deliverables, is important for the granting agencies, because they also want to see that you're utilizing those funds and you're being productive in the work that you said that you were going to do. We also have respect and integrity. So respect for persons is a really critical part, for example, in human subjects research. And this is also key when engaging with communities of color because of their past experiences with research participation and the stigmas that are associated with that for them. For example, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. So being able to engage in integrity and the broader application of research ethics helps to support the responsible conduct of research at these institutions, along with compliance with federal guidelines. And participating in research misconduct or non-compliance can be really detrimental to engaging particular funding sources. Also highlighted in the values of the different institutions was the idea of engaging in civil discourse. And so that helps to carry the conversation forward, enrich the literature, and also share ideas that generate innovative solutions to how to approach particular research problems. We also had diversity and inclusion as well. And so we have diverse perspectives that are coming together to be able to facilitate a culture of collaboration. And it also helps to engage diverse persons in the research community and provide a more multidisciplinary approach to being able to solve complex problems. And this inclusion can also extend to institutions, so intra and interinstitutional collaborations with diverse partners, as we mentioned before. We also have social responsibility. So this basically allows for the thoughtful planning that anticipates and minimizes the potential social and health impacts of engaging in research activities with vulnerable populations, and also the environmental impacts of developing physical infrastructure to support those research activities, and to also better address the challenges that are faced by underserved populations. And finally, we also have innovation. So innovation can be used to promote an expansion of research capacity by engaging new technologies, adapting them, refining them, or applying them to existing technology in a new way, a new and novel way. And so this high impact work can allow for institutions to continue to make notable contributions in a myriad of different STEM fields, and also help them to gain national recognition on a broader scale in different research areas and continue to expand their research capacity. So overall, I was able to identify 7 institutional values that were shared amongst those institutions that characterize those high research capacity institutions. And as they continue to implement these values, that will help to push them into that very high research activity classification. And so the value-based decision-making that they're making will help them to strategically plan for this expansion and allow them to become regional and national leaders in building research capacity. Some of the limitations of the study included the fact that I was only limited to getting publicly available versions of strategic plans for particular institutions. And the idea that some institutions may be transitioning to new plans that might have modified or additional values that impact their research capacity. And some of the different strategic plans, they had different time intervals. And then also within the strategic plans, some institutions just listed their values, while others gave really nice descriptions that really enhance or enrich the data set. So in terms of future directions, we want to also be able to investigate for these high research activity HBCUs, what are some of their common strengths and opportunities that contribute to their research productivity and potential? And then also, what are some of the weaknesses and threats that may serve as barriers to building further research capacity? And then thinking about what are some innovative solutions that we can use to combat these perceived challenges. And so finally, I'd like to conclude by sharing that although these R2 institutions only represent 10% of HBCUs nationwide, they can still serve as effective models for research capacity building among minority serving institutions. And the 7 core values that I was able to identify may serve as critical drivers for the success of institutional goals to expand research capacity and infrastructure, as well as facilitate more equitable access to funding and sustainability of research capacity at minority serving institutions. Thank you for your participation and also the opportunity to share. Thank you.